Welcome to the Smarter Science of Slim, the scientifically proven program where you eat more and exercise less to burn fat and boost health.
Eat smarter, exercise smarter, live better. I am so ready for that.
Hey everybody, Jonathan Bailor and Carrie Brown back with another SANE show, and we're going to keep you on your toes because we're trying some new things in the show. We've got a different mic setup. We're trying to leave you with action items. I'm going to try to pick out one specific topic for us to talk about, and then we're going to take it in all sorts of weird directions. So give us feedback, like it, don't like it. Either way, we'll be happier if you like it. Carrie, how you doing?
I should also mention, since we're doing things differently, that we are delirious today because it is, I swear, at least 119 degrees in this studio and I'm melting.
To be fair, it was about 72 degrees in the studio before Carrie came in, but ever since her extreme sanity, she was already a radiant element. For all the longtime podcast listeners out there, you already know that Carrie has long been a radiant element. But now that she is an extremely sane fireball of a radiant element, 30 degrees getting tacked onto a room when she enters it is normal.
Oh, stop.
So, Carrie, we got some wonderful feedback based on the last show about breakfast. So thank you very much to the listeners. And they said, hey, don't stop with breakfast. I want to know about lunch. And I want to know about dinner. So much like Sesame Street tells us that certain episodes are brought to us by the letter A and the number 7, I wanted today's SANE show to not the letter A and number 7, not that we have anything against those letters and numbers, but rather today's show is brought to you by the meal lunch. So Carrie, lunch, what do you think about lunch? SANE lunches.
I have a confession to make.
What's that?
Actually, 2.
Uh-oh.
I've never seen one episode of Sesame Street.
Do they have Sesame Street in the United Kingdom?
I have no idea.
Is it called, I couldn't think of anything funny to say there.
I don't know. Anyway, So that's one thing. And the second thing is, I kind of struggle with lunch because I eat a good breakfast. And then I often find that when 12 o'clock rolls around and my little alarm goes off on my phone telling me that it's lunchtime, I'm not really ready to eat it.
Carrie, we closed the last show with a challenge and opportunity to our listeners to challenge rules that have no basis in anything except convention, which is whatever. I'm going to have a separate solo Jonathan 90-minute podcast recording session where I just rant about that.
No dogma. No dogma. Down with dogma.
Down with dogma. So here's another dogmatic thing. Lunch happens at noon. Really? That is what? I mean, but how many people just eat at noon? I mean, so first of all, it makes eating at noon impossible because if you try to go to any restaurant, right, at noon, it's a rush hour nonsense. So like if I ever have a lunch meeting in quotations, you better believe it's either getting scheduled for 11 o'clock in the morning or 1:30 in the afternoon.
I pack my own lunch.
And you pack your own lunch. Exactly. Well, no, and I do too.
That's why noon.
So noon, whatever. For me, personally, I eat when I'm hungry in the morning. For me, this means right when I wake up, because I'm about lean muscle tissue maintenance and development for where I am personally in my life. I am not hungry at all in the morning, but I take this concoction, which we can talk about at some point, which ensures that I maintain my muscle and continue to develop muscle, but it's very easy to consume. So it's not really like breakfast. I personally, for me, get quite hungry around 10 or 11. I usually, and to be clear, I live in Seattle, but most of the people on the SANE team are not in Pacific Standard Time. So I work on Eastern Time. So I am up at 5 and working by 5:30 in the morning because that's only 8:30 in the morning in New York and places like that. Anyway, so about 5 hours after I wake up.
So you have food lag, not jet lag, you have food lag.
Exactly. So I personally, if you want to say like I don't eat breakfast in the sense that I do not eat food, real food, when I wake up because I'm not hungry at all. I do something else that you can talk about in a later episode. But then about 5 hours after that, I'm quite hungry. And I eat something which, again, is not breakfasty. I usually have a shake of some sort or an egg dish of some sort. And then my meal 2, right? Let's just number meals. Meal number 2 for me, I find, happens about 4 hours after meal one, because that's when I'm hungry. So I end up eating lunch at around 2 o'clock. But that's one of the macro principles I want to talk about in this show is there's no such thing as lunch, right? I mean, there's only such thing as lunch as there is, in a marriage, the woman is supposed to do this and the husband is supposed to do that. These things are artificial constructs, which we live in a time period where we don't need to be constrained by those things anymore. So first and foremost, let's talk about meal two, because I think most people eat midday. And if you eat approximately midday, when you get hungry midday, meal two, what are some go-to options? So what are some go-to options for you, Carrie?
During the week, because I like to do things differently at the weekend. During the week, it is a salad and a protein. So for me, that's normally smoked salmon or chicken breast or hard-boiled eggs, because I love eggs. And then a variety of raw veggies, lettuce, peppers, cucumber, tomatoes, carrots. I mean, whatever.
And this, I think, is a great option.
And I pack it to work myself.
Yeah, for people that pack stuff to work. When I used to pack lunches, I work primarily out of my home office now. When I used to pack lunches back when I was at Microsoft, I would always, same kind of formula as Carrie. There were burger type things that they sold at Costco. They still do. I still eat the salmon ones. They're wild caught Alaskan salmon burgers, fabulous. They also had turkey burgers. So I would usually just grill a bunch of those up on a Foreman grill or on the skillet, or you could actually even put them in the oven, make the protein in bulk, and then bring some vegetables and then bring some nuts. I mean, it's really almost like a cook by, like you have paint by numbers. It's almost like a cook by numbers type thing. For lunch, if you want convenience, you're looking at prepare some bulk protein, prepare some bulk veggies, and bring some delicious raw nuts. And you're good to go. Like this idea that sandwiches, that the formula used to be, and if you want diabetes formula is take a slice of bread, put stuff below it, and then take a slice of bread and put stuff above it.
That's the kind of lunch that you eat where 2 o'clock comes around and your face is hitting the desk.
Absolutely. And the same kind of formula applies, though. People would, if you go to, for example, corporate cafeterias, there's this like, take starch and put stuff in between it, or take starch and put stuff on top of it. Example would be pasta and rice. So there's this chain called pasta y gotcha, which is basically like, we're going to put a bunch of sugar on your plate, which is what pasta is. It's one step away from sugar. And then you can put all sorts of fun sauces on it. Please don't do that to yourself. Please don't do that. The gotcha in pasta y gotcha is, we just gave you diabetes. Ha ha.
Except it's not funny.
Gotcha. You don't really need to have a foot or vision. The only reason I mention that is because diabetes is the leading cause of both blindness and amputations in our country. So definitely not a laughing matter. But anyway, the old formula was starch on top, starch on bottom, stuff in the middle, sandwich, or starch on the bottom, other stuff on top. Rice or pasta usually fits that role. No more, right? Non-starchy vegetables on the bottom. This doesn't mean you can't enjoy, for example, Asian or Indian places, which are quite popular, especially out here in Seattle. Lunchtime, hit up an Indian buffet, fantastic, or an Afghan buffet. Mentioned that in the last show. You can still have the wonderful dish, just instead of putting it on top of rice, you put it on top of veggies.
Right.
So the formula is still, you're going to have some sort of meat protein, but you're going to combine that with the veggies and whole food fat rather than combining that with starch. Simple. And really, Carrie, that unlocks a bunch of stuff though, because oh my God, like what if the only option is McDonald's? Well, that's unfortunate, right? Like try not to put yourself in that situation because it's kind of hard to go SANE at McDonald's, but McDonald's offers salads and McDonald's offers grilled chicken sandwiches. So you get a grilled chicken sandwich, or you get a chicken salad. I haven't been to McDonald's for 5 years, 10 years. I don't know the last time I went to McDonald's was.
Slacker.
But there's always, like, think in terms of formula. Vegetable, protein. So you go to McDonald's, vegetable, salad, protein, chicken. They've got them both. Put them together. You want to go...
Throw the bun out.
What about Mexican? So Chipotle, my favorite fast food restaurant in the whole world. Love Chipotle. Like, I'd rather go to Chipotle than many fancy restaurants. I think it's fabulous. Chipotle, back in the day, when I lived in Ohio, 12 years ago, Chipotle first came out, all they offered was burritos. And we started ordering burritos without the
wrap.
There you go. Now, Chipotle has heard from their customers who are starting to go sane, they offer salads. So you just get bowl, lettuce, and then everything else on top. Easy breezy, simple. You go to an Asian restaurant, get whatever you want, just don't put it on top of rice. You go to an Indian restaurant, get whatever you want, just don't put it on top of rice and skip the naan. Thai restaurant, same thing. So it's not like any of this stuff is off limits. You just use a new formula. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So we've covered sort of quick, convenient options when you're in the office. But Carrie, I want to also talk about a lot of times lunch can be a social event. So you're eating out with people, you're getting together for lunch. We live in a culture where, Carrie, if you and I went out and let's say that I smoked, I was a smoker. And I said, Carrie, would you like a cigarette? And you said, Jonathan, I don't smoke. I wouldn't be offended. And no one would think you were being rude. But that doesn't hold for food in our culture. So if you go out with a group of friends to lunch and you go to a buffet, let's say, because lunch buffets are quite popular, and you don't get rice, some folks might say something to you. What do you do in those situations?
A couple of things. One, you are talking to a complete social hermit.
Excellent. Did not plan this beforehand.
Two, when I do go out, I find that my friends know what I do. Mm-hmm. And so I have never had, and this is honest, I have never had anyone say anything, make a comment, make a joke. In fact, if I ever just decide to go off the ranch like I did on Friday, my brother and his wife were in town and I went and met them downtown. We went to a seafood restaurant because this is Seattle. You eat fish. So I went and there was all sorts of same stuff on that menu. I could have totally done the same thing, but I'm like, you know what? I cannot remember the last time I had fish and chips. I had fish and chips. When I did choose something insane, that was when I got the, hang on a minute. So for me, it honestly has never been a problem.
Okay. Well, that's actually a good sign because one of the first tips I was going to start with was a Dr. Seuss quote or approximation of a Dr. Seuss quote, which is those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind. Which, let me just say that again, because it's really helped me in my life, and I think it can help you too, listeners, and that's those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. Meaning that people in your life who are actually people you want to have in your life will not ever criticize you for doing something that will benefit you, right? Like that's... If someone is ostensibly someone who cares about you and you do something which is unquestionably good for you and they ridicule you for that's questionable. An individual who is someone you want to have in your life is someone who's going to see that and is either going to say nothing. Like that's actually a sign of a big person. There's this wonderful book called Talking the Winner's Way, I think, which is this communications expert just talks about these tips and tricks for being a top level communicator and helping people feel most comfortable in social situations. And she gives an example of what just top tier people do when something awkward happens socially. So let's say you're out to a meal and someone spills a glass of wine on the table. What a top notch person will do is maintain eye contact with the person who spilled the wine and just pick their napkin up off their lap and start dabbing it up off the table. Like as if, that wine, like, I mean, imagine you were with someone and you made a mistake and they literally, it was like they just maintained eye contact with you with their hand. They just took care of it. It's like it never happened. Imagine how you'd feel and imagine how rare that is. And again, a culture where you spill something, it's like, oh my God, you spilled it, blah, 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 blah. Right? No. So those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind. Now, if you are with people who don't matter because they mind, I would urge you to do definitely do one thing, which is don't argue with them. These types of people goodness will never come from challenging them. Ever, ever. You will never challenge them, and they will never be like, oh, you know what? I never thought about it that way. Thanks. They will always just throw stuff back at you. And it's like, it's like teasing a ravenous dog. Like it's not going to make the situation better. So my father used to always tell me, my father is an addictions counselor. And when someone is heavily engaged in addictive behaviors and they're counseling their families, they have this term they use called DNE, do not engage. Just do not engage the person. If someone is in a heroin-induced psychopathic rage, like you're not going to have a rational conversation with that person. So you have to just do not engage. So of course, this is not to that level of severity, but if someone is going to poke fun at you for being sane, one, understand that they mind, so they don't matter. And two, don't engage. So maybe just smile, maybe just say thank you, agree with them. Yeah, I know, I'm always silly. I'm always doing something strange. Just, like judo. Think about it like judo. They're throwing a punch at you. You're going to catch it and move with it. And then the last thing you could do is, this is a little bit riskier. But it works in situations where, like, say, for example, you are ordering something at lunch and you're trying to make it more sane. So if you say, hey, can you hold the starch and double the vegetables? And the server is not compliant, which is very rare. You can say, I'm diabetic. If you say you're diabetic, haters will disappear because now they can't mock you, right? They can't say, of course, they know you and they know you're not diabetic. This isn't going to work. But if a server, for example, is like, oh, well, no, we can't make those substitutions, just say I'm diabetic. And you'll be pretty amazed at how quickly starch and sugar aversion becomes just fine.
For me, I find, I'm very confident. If I've ever, but I can't even think of an example, but if someone ever made a comment to me about it, you don't want rice or you don't want pizza or whatever, I will just say, no, thank you. Mm-hmm. I'd rather eat salad. And I actually had a situation last month where I was at a restaurant with a group of colleagues from work, and it was actually in the evening, and I'm aware that people take note of what I do because they know about my connection with SANE. And so I ordered, and I ordered it with, like you say, hold the starch and doubled the veggies, had a chat with the server. And when the server got round to one of my colleagues on the other side of the table, he said, I'll have what she's having. And so it was I made it easier for the others to be weird by saying, but actually it was, if you're confident, you can actually use that to influence other people positively without actually saying anything.
Carrie, I'm glad you used the word confident, because I think this is a really helpful distinction for our listeners, because confidence is often conflated with cockiness. And they're not the same thing. And cockiness is what turns people off. Confidence is one of the most attractive characteristics a human being can have. So let me give you an example of confidence. Gandhi was confident. Like Martin Luther King Jr. was confident. When Barack Obama was running for president, when he was talking about hope and change, he was confident. Like that was, and you'll notice that when people are truly confident, they're calm and they are the opposite of defensive. This is not, so someone who's not confident is someone who's like, I'm not going to eat that and you shouldn't either, right? That is the opposite of confidence. That is cockiness. That's condescendingness. What we're talking about here is confidence. So you're at a lunch event at your job or at a social event, and you're offered a pizza. And you say, oh, no, thank you. I'm not hungry. And you make solid eye contact with the person. And it's not defensive. It's just, it's a non-event. It's like they spilled wine and you just dab it up. Would you like a piece of pizza? Oh no, I'm not hungry. Thank you. Smile.
There is amazing power in confidently looking someone in the eye and saying, no, thank you.
Yep.
And if you need to, follow it up with, I prefer not to eat rice, or I prefer not to eat starches, or, whatever it is. I've never had a backlash from no, thank you. People don't challenge if you are just confidently state your your place.
And I would, if you need to practice this, because I know it sounds a little bit silly, but almost get a mirror, and because you want to smile when you do it. I mean, imagine these great leaders, and think of like a Margaret Thatcher, or just these amazing people that have lived throughout history. And when they say something, it's not like they're angry or it's a non-event. It's a calm acceptance. It's like, oh, you offered me pizza. That's a very kind gesture of you. Thank you. Like, I appreciate that you offered that to me, but I'm good. Thank you. Thank you though. So it's no offense taken. And if a basic principle of human interaction is that so for example, let's say you're watching ice skating or any kind of performance. So we've all probably either theater or something. You're watching someone perform something and they make a mistake. If they just act like they didn't make the mistake, don't you feel better? Like, what makes you feel really awkward is if you're watching someone perform, they screw up and then they get uncomfortable.
They're embarrassed, or you feel bad for them.
Because we're naturally empathetic people. So if the person you're with or watching in a performance example, if they become nervous and embarrassed and feel awkward, you become nervous and embarrassed and feel awkward. And the same thing happens in any form of human interaction. So just like, imagine you were watching a performer and they tripped and they just continued going on. You'd be like, oh, thank God, because I almost felt awkward. Imagine you're in a social interaction and it's only, and I'm going to put the responsibility on us as sane leaders, because frankly, if we're not responsible, what else can we do about it? It's our responsibility to not make that situation uncomfortable. And the good news is that's very easy to do. Just don't make it uncomfortable. Just be very friendly, smile. Everything's always positive. Thank you. I'll pass. If they press you on it, agree with them. Yeah, I know I'm silly. Who knows if I can keep this up? You're right. And eventually they'll just drop it. And if that seems, this person, they're not going to act that way. Imagine if you were in a social interaction with a person and their shirt was torn. You see the person, their shirt's torn. In the back of your mind, throughout your interaction with that person, everything that they say, you're just going to be like, your shirt's torn. Your shirt's torn. Hey, your shirt's torn. I don't know what it is. I'm sure one of our listeners who's got a PhD in psychology there's a name for this. But if that person were to say, so let's say, Carrie, that we're recording here and my shirt's torn. I'm like, hey, Carrie, how's it going today? Hey, I tore my shirt this morning. It was so embarrassing, but I don't have a spare shirt. So please bear with me with my torn shirt. It's like you would say, oh, he acknowledged that he has a torn shirt. So now I'm okay with it too.
That was a bad example, though, because if you had a torn shirt, yeah, really, I'm sure the listeners can fill in the blanks there.
But hopefully this is making
you
some
saying
sense.
That would not take my mind off your torn shirt.
Bad example. Let's say I had a coffee or green tea stain on my shirt. But listeners, hopefully you could, take away from that if you do not want these situations to be awkward, you have the power to make them not be awkward by not making them awkward. The only way a situation can become awkward is if both parties make it awkward. Right. You can't have an argument with one person.
Be firm, be friendly.
Perfect. Be confident, be friendly. Don't be cocky. Don't ever try to impose sanity on anyone else. That's an insane tactic because you're never going to impose anything on anyone else effectively. So again, if they mind, they don't matter. If they matter, they won't mind. Be friendly, smile, thank them. I know this sounds a little bit silly, but if you can't think of what to say, just say thank you. It might not make any sense, but I promise you that in the social interaction, it will more than likely work. Hey, would you like a cupcake? Thank you. I'll pass. I mean, just start with thank you because it sort of disarms people. And I think from there, you'll find a way to make it work. I think it's pretty good, Carrie.
We totally went off track there.
But I mean, I think that's what we got to do because lunch, I mean, so much of lunch and food in general is, right, here's what you eat. It's simple. It's the same always. Vegetables, protein, whole food fats, low sugar fruits. In the lunch context, let's give some concrete examples. So you go to various different restaurants. We talked about Asian-inspired restaurants, South American-type restaurants, Mexican restaurants. We talked about
McDonald's.
American restaurants, how you apply that. But the basic formula stays the same. But there's a whole nother level of this, and it's social interaction. It's the insane society we live in. And I feel like if people, just like with food, man, we're talking about abundance. We're talking about positivity. We're talking about sustainable, simple approaches. Actually, I forget who it was. I think it was Laura Dolson. And Laura, please forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name. She is the low carb editor for about.com. And she was on the show, and we talked about, I think that was the first time we coined the term nutritional serenity. And I think that's what we're after. Like, I just want to urge all of our listeners, if you're like, oh my God, is this a serving of that or serving of this? Or what do I do here? Like this sense of panic and urgency and complexity, that is poison. And that is going to derail you from everything in life. Like, it's simple. It's calm. It's abundance. It's happiness. Apply that to lunch. An abundance of sane food. Apply that to social interaction. Thank you. Laugh, smile, confidence. Easy breezy, sane.
Yes.
Excellent. And I'm going to go tear my shirt. On that note.
Please don't do that. If you want me to stay focused, please don't do that. See, already now, I've forgotten what I was going to say.
Carrie does have a salmon-colored sweater on, and her face now matches it. So on that note, we will bid you adieu, listeners, and your assignment or your action item for this week is going to be to assemble a lunch in the format we described. So if you frequently go out to lunch, just instead of doing the starch plus protein formula, do the protein plus non-starchy vegetable formula we talked about. If you're eating in the office, pre-prepare non-starchy vegetables, nutrient-dense protein, and take some raw nuts. It's simple as 1, 2, 3. And of course, some low fructose fruit, berries or citrus, super easy, super portable. And so that's your physical eating assignment. Your mental assignment is maybe, you're undoubtedly going to be in some sort of an awkward social situation. Try to take a step back and just come at it with truly calm, friendly confidence. Thank you. Agree with the person. Do not argue with them. Judo it. Think about these great leaders throughout history. Embody confidence, not cockiness. Embody serenity and smile and just make it happen and be sane.
Yeah. Just say no, but do it with a smile.
I love it. I love it. Well, Carrie, this has been brilliant. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we have. And please remember this week and every week after, stay sane.
See ya.
Wait, don't stop listening yet.
You can get fabulous free sane recipes over at carriebrown.com.
And don't forget your 100% free eating and exercise quick start program, as well as free, fun, daily tips delivered right into your inbox at bailorgroup.com. That's BAILOR group.com.